Mom, she was a registered nurse, a church librarian, a cook, a seamstress, a powerful but yet not pushy woman, a person of high moral character, and one who was my first love. I really do feel that my mom was the first woman in my world who then is the standard for all the women that I will let influence my thoughts. My mother not only set that bar for what it meant to be a woman, she also helped me to understand what it meant to be a man coming from a woman's perspective. In a previous presentation, I told you about what I did not know about my mom until after she had gone to heaven. To summarize that, she wanted to be a published author, which is what both Melissa and I have done. For what my mom was not able to do in her life, because her life went different directions, her two kids have accomplished on her behalf. And more than just being an author, Mom also taught me a lot about personal discipline, as well as to dream, followed by living out the dream. Discipline. Oh, the joys of motherhood. To train up a child in the way he should go so that when he is old, he will not depart from it. Now, unless you think that I'm saying this is only a mom's role, it is not. But one thing I can remember finding out was what discipline was like from my mother. I don't recall what I had really done, and maybe it's in my mother's journals that I will yet read. And maybe then I'll discover a lot more stories too when I write my next book of what it was like to grow up in the 80s and 90s, for whatever reason on my part. I don't recall a ton of the stories from back then other than having been told them from my mom and dad. Perhaps the result of a concussion I had while riding my bike. We will find out more when I write my next book, possibly entitled, but I don't know yet. You can give me your feedback on From a Mother's Eyes, a mother's perspective on a son's life. But the story is this, in regards to learning discipline in a sense from my mother. I do not remember what it was that I got in trouble for, but I know that she literally did pin me. And like the wiggle worm that I was, I wiggled out away from her. Not just once, not just twice, but several times over. She would get me and then I'd wiggle out. And then I decided to make it even more of a game and I ran out the back door. And I thought Mom might come after me. But Mom being Mom said, when your dad gets home, you'll find out what you're in for. Well, I made it a game, but Mom, well, she didn't think it really was much of a game. Now, lest you think this was mean and not warranted, trust me, it was. But that didn't stop me from having fun with it. In that process, however, I know one thing for sure. Mom loved me and wanted the best for me. She didn't want to harm me or cause me ill. She wanted to raise a responsible young man who would someday fall for another woman, whereby the nature of the bond with her, my mother, would shift. She would no longer be my first love. From the moment I was born, though, I am sure my mom recognized this. Dr. Meg Meeker, pediatrician and adolescent medical doctor who has worked with children and their parents for over 35 years now, says the following in her book, Strong Moms, Strong Sons. In my practice, I've seen something extraordinary, almost spiritual in the eyes of young moms who hold their sons for the first time. It's as though we know we have to hold on tightly while we can, because deep down we realize that we can't keep them. They will grow up, fall in love, and another will take our place. At that point, you must leave. Sons must leave their mother. We can't be in the middle of those relationships, says Meg Meeker. Our daughters, though, on the other hand, don't need us to leave in the same way. Somehow, we can maintain an intimacy with them even when they are grown and have fallen in love. We are to connect to our sons by the same deep love we have for our daughters, but there's a different makeup to the mother-son relationship. One day when he falls for someone, the nature of his bond with us will all shift. We will no longer be his first love. And that moment he is born, our deep sensibilities know this. This, I am sure, was true of my mother. Again, I'm sure I will find out when I read her journals, which I am very grateful to have. But from a mom's perspective, I was one of those boys who had an incredibly special bond with my mother. It was very strong, and in some ways, it was hard to date anyone because I had such a high respect for my mother. For she really did show me what it meant, at least as far as I was concerned, what it meant to be a woman. Before I continue telling some of my story and illustrating how my mother really showed me what it meant to be a woman, I want to just let you know that my mom, she wasn't perfect. I love my mom dearly and still do. And while this webinar is all about the relationship between a strong mom and her strong son, I will share with you some of the things that, well, I didn't learn especially from my mom. And some of the things that I had to wrestle through on my own as to what it meant to really be a man. I'll do this by sharing how my mother influenced me to find the lady of my dreams. I will then, with some of my story, tell you the victory. So you won't want to miss the ending of the story. Trust me, it's worth it. I again was raised in southern Minnesota, in Austin, a farming town. In the only county in Minnesota where there is officially no natural lake. Lest you, again, think that is all the town was known for, let me just talk about one of the chief employers in town. You've maybe heard of it. It's called Hormel Foods Incorporated. Yay for Spam Town, USA, the headquarters of the world-famous Hormel meat processing plant. My mom and dad met through church and got married, both being baby boomers. Their courtship was while my mom was in nursing school, in Rochester as well as in Chicago and a couple other places for my mom's program. When she was back in Rochester, Dad made a racing trip over there. Literally, one on his way to find a ring and then two to give it to Mom. And I asked Dad when I was putting this together what the story was. And he said it as follows, that they talked about getting married and he'd have to wait a while to get the money. Then a couple days later, he sped to Albert Lee from Hollandale, Minnesota, from the family farm. And then he found out the stores were closed, raced to Austin, found that there was somebody still in one of the jeweler stores in Austin. And this particular person was just the janitor. But he let him in and somehow let him out with the ring. And long and short of it, Dad then sped over to Rochester, told the dorm mom who was there who he was and what he needed to do. The dorm mom gave them 1 hour, and then Mom had to be back in, because that's the way it was back in that day. Now, my dad then went to McDonald's and got burgers and fries. And while he was ordering, he told my mom, look in the glove box, there's something in there for you. And then they went to a park in the city there in Rochester. But remember, Dad had to get back for that hour, so he dropped Mom off and, well, Grandpa and Grandma Felty were really excited for them. But Grandpa Felty, or otherwise known as Pa to Melissa and I, said, now, Arnold, if you want me to pay for the nursing program, You'll have to wait to get married until after graduation. Oh, my dad, being wise that he was, said, "No problem, sir." He didn't really say it as "no problem, sir," but you get the point. He said, "Sure, that's fine with us." So for 2 years, Dad and Mom were engaged, from what I understand. They got married, and then a couple of years later, Melissa and I came along. And then 3 years later, after Melissa, I came along in 1975. I grew up under the shadows of my big sister at times, but more so, it was the shadow of my godly mother. I do remember time and time again observing Mom closely as she would get out her Bible and read it. I remember seeing her write in her journals that I now have. I remember at the dinner table, after she had cooked meals, she would remind us that Dad would read the daily devotional Keys for Kids when we were done eating. I remember Mom insisting that we went to church, Sunday school, and more when we were young. I remember my mom serving at church, and in some ways this is old-fashioned, but I remember that when she could, and that was not super often because of her work schedule, she would help out in the kitchen for different funerals, weddings, and other special events. My mother's friends consisted of her close work associates and church friends. I remember Mom seeking to keep distant family members informed about what was all going on back in the day, which that meant letter writing. And eventually, when long-distance phones service became reasonable, she would call people. I also remember Mom working 40 hours a week, often oscillating times with Dad's schedule, so that we wouldn't have to spend as much time with Grandpa and Grandma, Felty, or with their neighbor who took care of us if Grandma couldn't for some reason. Oh, the good old days of Alice Anna Bertha, and all the memories of the milk coffee parties and playing in her backyard and in her basement. Oh, the times. I remember times of Mom also in the kitchen, cooking of course, but I tend to remember her more for her baking for some reason. Now, I also remember my mom spending countless hours doing the bookkeeping. And if I were at home when I put this together, I probably could have been sitting on that very table that I remember Mom at, because it's here in my my dining room. Mom was meticulous when it came to those facts. I grew up with a mom doing that and not Dad. I did not grow up, though, with a mom just doing the cleaning. Dad was a good house husband, and they shared those responsibilities well. I remember Mom doing the housework, but in tandem with Dad. They would jointly be chasing dust bunnies around the house. One was using a dust rag, the other a vacuum. Mom was the one who kept the family on schedule, with Mondays being laundry day, Saturdays being cleaning day, and when it came time for spring and fall cleaning, everyone got involved. Mom, she was a special lady to me. I learned time management from her. I learned how to handle bookwork, which I can do and do it well. I learned how to clean for Mom. I learned how to do dishes and keep things nice and neat. Mom was the one who insisted on making the bed as soon as you got out of it, and all the time with hospital corners. Mom taught me how to cook. She taught me some about baking, but I remember more learning from her how to cook, even though I remember her more for her baking. Mom also taught me what modesty was through dressing appropriately. I knew what was right and what was wrong based on just watching my mother, and of course, what I was taught in church growing up also. It takes a tribe to raise a kid, don't forget. And my mom and dad's tribe, that was through church and family associations. Mom, for me, embodied what it meant to be a great woman of strength, dignity, and value, while working full-time and building a strong family unit alongside of my dad. Mom provided well for the family with what she did as a registered nurse for 45 years, of which we're basically in the same facility. Now, Dad also added into that, but in this presentation, I'm focusing in on more of the relationship with Mom. In many ways, my first love was Mom, simply because of who she was. When the going got tough in school, I didn't necessarily go to Dad. I just didn't. For some things, maybe, but in grade school, I think I was much more like my mom than my dad. My mother seemed to be more academic of the two also. And that meant I gravitated towards Mom for her, or towards her for those things. Additionally, I leaned on my mom to learn more about virtues, and through that association, I learned what it meant to have happiness in the midst of life. I like what Meg Meeker says in the chapter on her book in regards to this. As mothers, we know that feeling love brings our sons deep satisfaction, commitment, and a sense of security that will take with them into adulthood. When they are born, we Google over them, or I should say oogle over them, and wonder how we can feel such an intense love for one human being. But as the boys grow older, the perfect love becomes complicated by the realities of day-to-day living. Meg goes on to share how for boys it is harder to connect with them after toddlerhood, because gone is the little boy who trusted us with his entire world. And in his place is a toddler who tells us that we don't know what we're talking about. Because, after all, we are just Mom. Daughters, Meg Meeker says, communicate their feelings more often, even after their younger years. Boys, well, they just see through a different lens than we do, and often it is hard to understand one another. In fact, many times when we try to make amends by discussing our feelings with our sons, we can be met with further rejection because boys don't always want to talk things through. And then we often end up pulling back, which creates unnecessary distance between us without solving the problems. Bottom line of what Dr. Meg Meeker is saying is this. It is important to remember that your son can't be genuinely happy unless he knows deep in his soul that his mother loves him. I certainly knew that my mother loved me. Let me also state this. Virtues. Now, I learned them from both of my parents, but I talked with them more about them with my mother. I knew that was true, especially in my teenage years, and after college when I came back around home at different points of my life. Now, this is not to say my dad didn't impact my thoughts on virtues, because he did. But I talked to Mom about them more. I concur with what Meg Meeker says about that. As mothers, our job is to help our sons seek knowledge and truth. Because these are the things that being true, or that bring true satisfaction of the soul. If we are serious about helping our sons find happiness, we must challenge them to differentiate good from evil, right from wrong. We must also encourage them to make decisions on moral and ethical issues. If Aristotle is correct, and I believe he is, then our sons literally cannot be happy without learning to live with virtues, because it is virtues that help regulate the choices that people make. What are these virtues? Courage, temperance, justice, prudence, wisdom, and chastity. What mother would not want her son to have any of these? We all would. said Meg Meeker. And since Aristotle claims that having virtues is the primary means through which humans achieve happiness, we have more motivation then to teach these to our sons. When I think of my mom, she exemplified these virtues. Meg goes on to say the following: some mothers are hesitant to teach virtues. However, because they see them as outdated and unnecessary in modern society, with all of its sophistication and complexity, that's what they think. But think for a moment, Meg goes on to say. Courage is the ability to have the strength to do what is right, regardless of what others think. Temperance is having the power to enjoy all the pleasures in moderation by exercising self-control over one's bodily appetites and pleasures. Justice is righting what is wrong and treating others fairly. Prudence? It requires that one lives with practical wisdom, utilizing caution. Wisdom, of course, is being able to make smarter choices when required to do so. And chastity involves having control specifically over sexual desires. So our goal, Meg Meeker says, is to help our sons be genuinely happy. Our first job as mothers is to begin to teach them the 5 virtues. My mom did those things and did them well. I love her, and I have to thank her in many regards, as well as my dad. But it's just a different relationship for another talk about that topic. The second thing that Dr. Meg Meeker says moms must do in order to help their boys to be happy is to teach them how to love, how to give it, and how to receive it. Now, unlike some boys who were in sports and their moms came to all their sports events and blah, 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 I wasn't in sports. I was in Awana clubs in church, as well as I loved books. And later on, I was in band. This was all evident to me when Shannon and I recently perused my scrapbook that Mom had made for me. I was shocked to have found out how many books I was reading as a kid, being I was one who struggled with reading and even needed Title I help. I overcame that and read books and read books. I additionally love the book of all books, the Bible, when I was able to really read it and even memorized Bible verses like crazy. I got many awards for it. I even completed the memorization of a book of the Bible called Philippians. I was headed to another book, 2 Timothy. Mom was into books, magazines, reading, writing, and, well, her arithmetic in the sense of budget work. I didn't pick up that last love. So connecting with Mom was easier for me over the years, even though she was female. The relationship with my mom carried into college as well. When it came time for my senior oral exam on what I believed about all of the doctrines of the Bible, the major doctrines, who did I call to quiz me all the way from Pennsylvania to Minnesota? I called Mom. I had sent her a copy of my study cards to go over with me, and time again we went through them so I could ace that oral exam, with the 3 professors listening to my every word. Mom did indeed spend time with me. Mom also, when I was around home through my college years, would enjoy playing Chinese checkers with me. I thought it was awesome. She didn't just let me win either. Mom would not do the puzzles with me as much, But at times she did them, but Dad was more the puzzler, if he was going to sit and do something. All the way along into my younger adult years, Mom showed me love and helped me to experience it in the right manners. In college, I dated one lady and even brought her home from Pennsylvania. And while that relationship didn't work out, we're still friends on Facebook. She recently, in the last year or so, reached out to me and said, "Boy, you don't look like you aged much." I guess pictures lie. After college, I didn't date much. I wanted to, but I didn't find any young women that were meeting my expectations, or if I did, I didn't meet their expectation. I knew how to love and to give love, but I didn't know how I was to really be a man. Mom couldn't teach me that. Women, you can't validate young men, and dads, you can't validate your young girls, your young ladies. I'll speak more about that next month or in the equipping side of my 4 parts of my webinars this year. My point is that at age 24, I learned what it meant to really be a man. Come with me on a journey of the soul of a man. Women, you'll appreciate knowing this journey, and if you are single, you will gain insight into what to look for in a man. And this is not according to me, but is according to John Eldredge from Wild at Heart Ministries. After Bible college, I landed for just about 2 years out at Mount Rainier National Park, living and working on the mountain, well, the actual active volcano. I worked with the concessionaire, but I volunteered my first year out there, which is how I landed out there in reality, with the Christian ministry in the National Parks Association. While out there, I got a lot of hiking in, as I was in the prime of life and able to get out at a moment's notice, literally, and just go exploring, and explore I did. I also read a book that changed my world as it relates to the understanding of what it meant to be a man versus a male. This book is one I recently have reread in total. In addition to rereading that book, I also just read its companion book for the ladies. These 2 books have truly shaped my life beyond what my mother did. I seriously can't say enough about Wild at Heart and Captivating. The full titles are Wild at Heart, Discovering the Secret of a Man's Soul. Captivating, Unveiling the Mystery of the Woman's Soul. Respectively, these books are written by John Eldredge, and then Captivating is co-authored by him and his wife Stacy. I am so thankful for the strong basis that my parents both gave me. I focused in on this presentation on the influence of my strong mother and what she gave me. There's a whole lot more that Mom gave me, as is evident in a complete reading of the Strong Mother, Strong Sons book, which I want to do a mastermind on later this year. If it were not for that strong foundation that they gave me, I wouldn't have been able to launch myself into a whole other thought process with the other 2 books that I mentioned, as well as the multitude of others that I have read on relationships between men and women, including, but not limited to, Symbis, the Save Your Marriage Before It Starts. I am so looking forward to the webinar that I am going to be doing on February 14th, Valentine's Day, where I can help couples figure out how to start their lifelong love affair together. What a better day to do a Symbis presentation. I mean, it's Valentine's Day. Why not talk about lifelong love? And the Marriage Before It Starts, Save Your Marriage Before It Starts program is done by Drs. Les and Leslie Parrott, and I am a trained facilitator and coach because of my association with them. It all started with a strong mom who was on mission for her entire life to live her dream of dreams, a solid career, raise her children according to the teaching and admonition of the Lord, I truly am thankful that my mom helped me through so much, and I am eternally indebted to her. She is no longer on this side of heaven, and that shook me to the core for a number of years after her passing into heaven. It also made me realize more of her impact on me. It was a couple years after not having her that I began to date. Remember those 2 books that I talked about, Wild at Heart and Captivating? I used those 2 books in my later dating years, especially the last 6 years of my life. And I used them to seek to discover the woman of my dreams. And I have found her. I didn't find her, though, without first understanding that she's not my adventure at all. I had to have another purpose to really live into. The adventure of helping other people excel in faith, family, and freedom so they can be a real relationships, equipping, attitude, and leadership success on the stage of life that matters most. Their front door had to be front and center in my life, or the vibration that I would give off to the world, or as Wallace D. Wattles says in The Science of Getting Rich, the thinking stuff. Or as James Allen says, as a man thinketh, so is he. And aligning those things vertically would allow me to come horizontally and find and be aligned with that right young lady. I can say that as I'm 45 and 46, a young lady, she's right around my age. I won't say which way. Once that was aligned both vertically with God and horizontally with man, I would have the lady come along on the adventure of coaching, business development, and leadership, youth, family, and parenting, as well as in the network marketing industry. Step 1. Know that as a man, you were born for an adventure to live. A purpose, a cause, a vision beyond yourself. That's step 1. Step 2 is to know that there is a battle to truly fight. The battle is deep because we are dangerous to someone. He took us out originally through taking our lady out. That slippery stinker trickster. That slithery, slimy one. Who thinks he now roars around, walking about as a lion, seeking whom he may devour. But we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and rulers of wickedness in high places. Yet, when we accept Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior and win over this battle, we are given the battle armor to put on that can extinguish any of the fiery darts of the evil one. And trust me, we must use those weapons that frankly I memorized as a little lad, thanks to my mom's influence as well as my dad's. And so now I use them in battle of my soul, as well as the battle for my fiance's soul, which I have chosen to step in between. Her and the one who opposes her natural beauty as a woman, and who opposes her tenacity for the truth. And she wants to love me as she is wired. She also wants to respect me, not because she's commanded to, but because she wants to. Into this battle I go. Step 2, realize there is a battle for our souls as men. And when you start fighting for those around you, your strength attracts attention. used rightly, it'll be to fight for your lady's soul and your kids' soul as well. The battle is real, and it is a battle to fight. Number 3 is a beauty to rescue, and rescue her one must. There are many reasons a lady builds a strong tower. That is another whole lesson on one that you could read about from the books that I've mentioned. But a male is not a man who does not really fight for the whole of the woman he loves. If he twists what that battle is about, he will take his battle to his woman, as if the battle were only to fight for her. Do not be confused. If he thinks the battle is just fighting to win her over so that he can have sex, he's a male, and not a man. Understand how to bring out or arouse the woman within your lady is a very evolving process, of which I have been embarking on for a few years. While I do not claim to be an expert on it, I am thrilled to be engaged to Shannon Santo, who has a strong dad and a strong mom, which she has learned a lot from. I am thrilled that Shannon and I are both excited about what lies ahead of us with true biblical-centered lifelong love. We are going through the SYMBIS process together and are both SYMBIS coaches. And we're also certified John Maxwell team members. I have also gone on and done the family, parenting, and youth side of the training of the John Maxwell team, as well as I'm a disc trainer. Shannon is making her move further in her education in the coaching and psychology things as well. Together, our adventures are overlapping and forming a solid adventure that we can move forward with. We know that we will be great coaches for families and more. But none of that, I repeat, none of it would be occurring had I not really had a strong mom who taught me about love, what it is and isn't, how to give it and how to receive it. It would not have happened had I not been taught great virtues. It would not have happened had I not read some pivotal books that helped me understand the mystery of a woman's soul. Oh, don't worry. I have more to read on that topic, for sure. I have to keep preparing to defend her from the forces that want to take her out. Thank you, Mom, for all that you have done for me, for helping me to see who I should truly consider and how to fight for her as you exemplified in your relationship with Dad. I love you. I will see you again in heaven. I truly hope that through this story, I have shared some points that demonstrated what a strong mom does in helping to create a strong son. I can't hardly wait to talk about next month what a strong father does for a strong daughter. This will be neat to do and awesome to share. I also hope that this webinar has given you hope in your relationship with your own son. If I can be one who helps people in faith, family, and freedom so they can be that real success on the stage of life that matters most, their front door, I will have gotten to be leaning in and accomplishing part of my destiny that my mother gave me so early on in my life. Please, if I can be of help to you to be a stronger parent, and I'm going to work on my parenting program and get it released this month for you, give me a call. I've got 25 years of working with students and their parents, and I can't wait to share with you about purpose and vision and cause, and a whole lot more on values. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. Until next time, I leave you with a blessing. Go forward as parents. You are blessed as parents to have the little ones around you. And maybe the not so little ones around you because we're adults. But because you are blessed to be a blessing to those around you. Until next time, we'll catch you later.